Every year, the Sunday after Pentecost is Trinity Sunday, where we celebrate the Trinity. I know you got up this morning saying, boy, I want to hear about the Trinity. That's where I'm going. Before I get into the Trinity, I want to talk about the system under which the first century operated. It was the patronage system. In a patronage system, it's not so much what you have or what you know, it's who you know. It's, the little people have a patron that looks out for them, that protects them, that provides for them. Think of the Godfather. I mean, that's a patronage system. The little people go to Don Corleone on the day of his daughter's weddings and ask favors. And Don Corleone provides for them, protects them. They give honor. They give honor to Don Corleone, and he provides for them. That's a patronage system. The feudal system, where the serfs gave honor to the lord, and then the lord of the area protected them from invaders and allegedly, provided housing and clothing and so on. So it's not what you have or what you know, it's who you know. And who you know will provide access for what you want. We still have something of a patronage system in our culture, and I assume most cultures do. It's not uncommon for me to sit in a meeting and we'll say, it would be really good to have this person speak to our group. And then the next question is, well, who knows somebody that knows somebody that, could get access to that person? In clergy gatherings, probably 3-4 times a year, I will get contacted by another minister, and they will say, could you get me in contact with Kim Jacobs or Chris Bradley? We'd like to have them speak to our group. Could you let them know we're going to be contacting them? Could you tell us how? Because they're so powerful and way up there, that they need an intermediary. My car broke down Thursday in Upper Arlington. I mean, it just died. And it died on the street and right in front of a no parking sign. And I thought, whoa, I don't drive through Upper Arlington very often, and I've heard stories. What will happen? I called the tow company, and they said, we'll be out in a half hour. And I looked at the no parking sign, and I had 10 minutes left. And I thought, oh my gosh, the police are going to show up and tow me with my broken down car. And I thought, what do I do? What do I do? It doesn't matter what I know. It doesn't matter how much money I have. Who do I know? I know the police chief in Upper Arlington. The patronage system is working, Nothing happened. But often it's important who we know. The patronage system, what it does is it does lead you to believe that the patron is distant and far removed, that the patron can bless us and punish us, that the patron can withhold benefits or give benefits, can bless us or curse us. We often transfer that thinking to our relationship with God, don't we? That God is distant, God is far removed, that God blesses or curses, that we honor God, and then God showers us with and provides us and preserves us and protects us. And, when something bad happens to us, one of our first thoughts is, why is God doing this to me? Well, that's kind of patronage thinking. In the Catholic Church, in other churches, you have a patron saint. And the point of a patron saint is God is so far removed and so distant that you need an intermediary to give you access to God. I have found that in the church, one of my roles in any church is that of priest. We don't often think of in the Protestant church of priests, but what people want me to do is not to teach, not to preach, not to counsel, not to visit, but to provide them access to God. And if I'm just there and if I bless them, they feel like they have access to God. So it is in this world of patronage in the first century that Jesus burst onto the scene. It was a patronage system where your patron politically and economically was the emperor. And the emperor, if you honored the emperor would give you a good job, would give you land, would provide for you and care for you. Religiously, it was the priest and the temple. If you did what the priests and the ruling class of the temple wanted, you would have access to God. If you didn't, you didn't. And Jesus comes along and kind of wipes all that out and says, nah, it's not the priests, it's not the temple who are your patron, it's me. And it's not the emperor that provides abundance for you, it's me. I provide that access. When he says, I am the gate, when he says, no one comes to the Father but by me, when he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, he is making statements against the patronage system, which was how the world operated. And it's a kind of radical stuff. I mean, this is one reason, maybe the major reason, why he was crucified. He overturned the political and religious system by providing access to God, and you didn't have to go through all these hoops, and you didn't have to pay a lot of money. You didn't have to pay any money. Jesus provided access to God. That's the point of grace. That grace is available to all. You don't have to buy it. Jesus is offering a new way of relating to God and a new way of seeing God. God is not distant. God is not far removed. God is not up there or out there. God is Abba. Not this Godfather up in heaven, but this Daddy that we relate to. Not this Godfather that we're afraid of, that we have to jump through their tune, but this Daddy who cares for us and knows us intimately. And when Jesus talks about his relationship to God and his relationship to the Spirit, he doesn't talk about God as distant or far away or a God who punishes or a God who rewards. He talks about his relationship to God. I am in the Father and the Father is in me. And when you see the Father, you see me. And what I know, the Father knows, and what the Father knows, I know. And the Spirit is one with us. And you get this picture, not of a vertical relationship, but a horizontal relationship of mutuality. And Paul picks up on that and says, it's not this vertical, it's this horizontal relationship we have with God. And he talks about Abba, Father. And he talks about we don't have a spirit of slavery. We have a spirit of oneness with God and intimacy with God. Now, it's a very different way of seeing our relationship with God. And I'm almost tempted to take a vote. Do we see our relationship with God vertically, or do we see it horizontally? I've always seen it vertically, a patronage system. Now, Jesus and Paul never use the word, but what we're talking about is the Trinity. When Jesus talks about the Father and I and the Spirit are one, and the Spirit animates us, and the Spirit is in God, who's in me, who's in the Spirit, it's Trinitarian language. And when Paul talks about we are with God, we are with the Spirit is with us, the Spirit is with God, the Spirit is with Jesus, he's using Trinitarian language. The Trinity is three. One, if it's one, you have this vertical relationship with God, where God is the unmoved mover, the uncaused cause of philosophy, where God is distant, where God is self-centered. If it's two, you have binary dualistic thinking, black and white, rich and poor, male and female, gay and straight, first world, third world. And it's oppositional and opposed. So you can see the world vertically, you can see the world dualistically, or you can see the world with three. Three adds a little bit of movement to it. It adds a dynamic to it. It makes it a community. You really don't have a community with two. You don't have a community with one. But you have a community with three or more. You have more relationships. And the dynamic part is, I don't know if this is a good example or not, but I think of our marriage. Susan and I were married for 5 years before we had any child. And those 5 years, there wasn't much difference between when we were dating and when we were married. Our life didn't change much. But man, adding that third, everything changed. We had relationships that we had to be aware of, and you couldn't be very self-centered. And then you have the second kid, and then you have the third kid, and it's just hopeless, and you've lost all control and all power. But three is a relationship, and three is a community. And so when they talk in this kind of Trinitarian language, they're talking about community, that God is a community and God is a relationship. In the creation story in Genesis, God says, let us make humankind in our image. A lot of theologians jump all over that in our image, that in the very beginning, God was a relationship, that the foundation of the world is based on relationship. It's not based on power, it's not based on patronage, it's based on relationship. That it's based on the relationship of atoms and molecules, that it's based on the relationship of planets and universes and so on. And that if God is a relationship, then the relationship for human beings is not about power or one or two. It's about community. The world was founded and humanity was created to be in community. And there's this flow then. If there's this flow between the Spirit and God and Jesus in this mutuality and this care for each other and this thoughtfulness of each other and this looking out for each other and this thinking of each other, there's this flow of where they just go around. Then what the Trinity is doing is inviting people into that flow. And we can jump in where it becomes 4. And other people can jump in where it becomes 5 or 6 or 7. One writer says salvation is entering into this mutuality of the Trinity, where we enter into God's love for Christ and Christ's love for the Spirit and the Spirit's love. And we enter into that Spirit, and that is salvation. And then they say sin is refusal to enter into that ocean of love. When Paul writes about the Trinity, he uses we and with a lot. We are debtors to Christ. We suffer with Christ. We rejoice with Christ. And it's always with. With is a word that's kind of horizontal. You're with me. We're on the same page. We're on the same level. We understand each other, And we is obviously a plural, not a singular. So we are with each other in community, caring for each other and identifying with each other. The end of that passage, Paul says, since we suffer with Christ, we will be glorified with Christ. Now, I've always read that horizontally, that the patron, the Godfather, says, I have to suffer in order to be glorified, in order to be rewarded. But that can be read horizontally too. If I am in this flow with God and the Spirit, I experience what they experience. If I'm in with them, I will naturally experience their hurts and their griefs and their concerns and their joys and their sufferings and their happiness. It's like saying, if I'm in a relationship with my family, of course, I will hurt with the kids and hurt with Susan and care about her concerns. And I will also rejoice with her. It's just as a natural relationship. God isn't demanding anything of us other than to enter into the flow and not remove ourselves from the community which rejoices and suffers with us. It changes how we see God if we see God in a Trinitarian way. It also changes how we see our neighbor. If we have a Trinitarian view, it's not you and me against each other. It's not me the male and you the female. It's not me the straight and you the gay. It's horizontal. It's we together. And it's we inviting others into the dance. The Trinity is really a dance between God and Jesus and the Spirit. And we are invited into the dance. And we invite others into the dance. And that's how the community grows and flourishes. Oh, you can think of the dance in Gone with the Wind, that huge ballroom scene. I think of a square dance because that's the only dance I know how to do. But you think of that, and you change partners. You don't change your identity, but you change partners. And you dance with others. And you enjoy life. That's what I think the Trinity is. It's a square dance. It's more than 3. It's 4, 5, 6, 7. And we dance together. And we relate together. And we care about each other as God cares about us. May it be so. May we be Trinitarian and not worry about how to explain it, but how we live it. Amen.